Campaign 2006, the race for the 25th congressional seat. The Maxwell School of Syracuse University and CBS 5 WTVH present a debate live from Maxwell Auditorium on the SU campus.
Good evening and welcome to the Maxwell Auditorium here at Syracuse University. Over the next hour, the candidates of the 25th Congressional District will debate the issues that matter to you. This is a live debate. I'm Donna Adamo with CBS 5 News in Syracuse. Joining me as co-moderator is Professor Robert McClure. Professor McClure is a professor of political science at the Maxwell School here at Syracuse University and is the Chappell Family Professor of Citizenship and Democracy. Now we'll introduce you to the candidates for the 25th congressional seat. Republican Congressman Jim Walsh, the incumbent, was first elected in 1988 and has served 9 terms as a U.S. congressman. He is a senior member of the Appropriations Committee on Labor, Health and Human Services and Education. He is the chairman of the Subcommittee on Military Construction, Veterans Affairs, and related agencies. He is also a former Syracuse Common Council president. The challenger in this race in the 25th Congressional District is Dan Maffei. He is a former press secretary for Senator Bill Bradley. He was a senior staff member for the House Ways and Means Committee. Mr. Maffei was also the 2005 campaign manager for Syracuse Mayor Matt Driscoll. He is also a former television reporter. That doesn't make tonight any easier, I have a feeling. Right now, Professor McClure will explain how tonight's debate will work.
The order of response to tonight's questions was determined by a coin toss, with the winner of the toss deciding who goes first. The questions posed will be answered by both candidates, alternating who responds first. Mr. Walsh and Mr. Maffei will have 2 minutes to respond. There will be no rebuttal and no opening statements. Some of tonight's questions come directly from viewers in the 25th Congressional District. Others were prompted by viewer email. We'll continue asking questions, allowing enough time at the end for 3 minutes of closing statements by each candidate. Mr. Maffei won tonight's coin toss and deferred and chose to go second. So Mr. Walsh, we begin with you. Okay. Since all politics is local, let's begin with a look at the 25th Congressional District, its 650,000 people, and their values and interests. Most legislators develop a mental picture of the constituency they represent. Then they test the decisions they confront against this picture they carry around in their heads. A 2-part question now. What's your mental picture of the 21st Congressional District? Describe the district for us. And then tell us why, no matter how different we may be from you, that the picture you carry around will have our face, everybody's face in it. That your district will never become just a blown-up version of you and your like-minded, similarly situated friends and neighbors.
Bob, I would expect a question like that from a professor, and a very good one, I might add. I'm honored to be here tonight at the Maxwell School, which has provided my community with so many wonderful leaders from my days in city government to my current involvement in Washington. My own son is a graduate, and I'm very, very proud of that. I think of our society, our community, as a tapestry. There are many colors within that tapestry. There are many very bright colors, there are background colors, there are earth tones and hues of every possible shade. In terms of the people, the economy, the natural environment, our assets, cultural and social. And I've tried to involve myself in as many of those as I could. I was a city councilman before I came down. I mentioned I was city council president. Before that, I was a city councilman. I'm still a city councilor at heart. I care deeply about this community. And it has it's just a wealth of talent. I say often, I've worked a lot on water-related issues. I always say water is our most valuable resource after our people. We're rich in both. And so it takes time to develop relationships. I've tried to meet with every person who has ever asked for a personal meeting with me. I said, just be patient, give me some time, we'll work into the schedule. And I've met with thousands of people. My phone number is in the phone book, so I can be available to people at a critical time. You know, a lost passport or a lost student in the family somewhere in Europe that needs some help from the embassy. It's a wonderful, wonderful job and full of wonderful challenges. I love to solve problems, and I think that's what I've been doing.
Mr. Maffei?
Well, I too am very glad to be here at the Maxwell School. My father is a graduate, not my son, but I'm very, very happy to be here. And of course, one thing that Ms. Adamo forgot to mention is I also was Pat Moynihan's press secretary, and of course the center here is named after the late great senator. I agree with Mr. Walsh about the diversity of this district being a major, major asset. It is a wonderfully diverse district in terms of both in terms of rural to suburban to urban people, in terms of this racial diversity, ethnic diversity, the kinds of things that people do is one of our greatest assets. One thing, though, that is true about this district is it doesn't approve of the policies of George W. Bush. In fact, in the last election, they didn't vote for President Bush. They voted for John Kerry, and in fact, the one before that as well. And now we have clear polling that shows about 2/3 of the district, even a little bit more than 2/3 of the district, is disagreeing with President Bush and his policies. That's why I do find it odd that even while Mr. Walsh does meet with his constituents from time to time on a one-on-one basis, that he votes 9 out of 10 times with President Bush, actually about 92% of the time if you include the last 6 years. And I might have a suggestion, although I'm not sure if he's going to need it, but if you are having too much time meeting one-on-one, you might want to have a town hall meeting. Since 1991, there hasn't been an open public town hall meeting between Mr. Walsh and his constituents. It's a very good way to get to know what your constituents are thinking, particularly on a specific issue such as Social Security, stem cell research, the war in Iraq. Not everybody is going to agree, and that's fine. But at least people feel like they've aired their views, and their congressman knows that. When I'm the congressman in this district, we're going to have a lot of town hall meetings, very frequently, and everywhere in the district, and they're going to be completely open. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of times only one person even shows up. But we are going to have those meetings, and that's very, very important. Because the picture of this district is not only diverse, it continues to change, and the congressman needs to change with it.
Thank you both. Well, as you both know, our viewers have some issues that they would like addressed. Our second question comes from a local businessman, Evan Walker of Camillus. He says, as a local business owner in Syracuse, the health of the upstate economy is very important to me. I would like to know exactly what Mr. Maffei thinks leaders are doing wrong and what he proposes to do that is different to improve the upstate economy. I would like to ask Mr. Walsh to comment on his record on the matter and respond how he feels that he has been effective in those efforts as well. Mr. Maffei, we begin with your response.
Yes, I think what leaders have been doing wrong, frankly, is the same thing over and over again. For instance, one of the things that we've been trying to do is we cut corporate taxes to the wealthy, the multinational corporations predominantly. There are even provisions in the federal tax code that actually reward companies that offshore jobs, that move overseas. There's also a provision that rewards companies for setting up a sham headquarters in Bermuda. Some Democrats tried to eliminate that, but Mr. Walsh voted against that when it came up in the Appropriations Committee, or at least he voted against banning federal contracts for those companies. Another thing is these tax breaks to oil companies sends the wrong message. I think what we need to do is tax breaks for smaller companies, particularly the research and development tax cut that's not useful for small companies because they don't have enough income. That could be maybe made refundable, made targeted for small businesses which really require capital. Another thing we could do is more zonal kinds of things. Like we have an empowerment zone in Syracuse. We got it in 2001, but it hasn't been useful because of the specific rules. Let's take a look at those rules and make them more useful. Mr. Walsh does a lot of grants, appropriations, and those aren't necessarily bad things, but we've tried them for decades and decades. The problem is it's like giving a person a fish instead of teaching them to fish. Every year you're dependent on that same grant. Maybe it'll come, maybe it won't. You have to go back to Congressman Walsh's office.